So, and speaking of that, we got Suzanne Meijroos. Hi.
Thank you ever so much. Oh, I have to catch my breath there. Well, as you heard in the introduction, I haven't been this happy for a long time in my life. And I want to tell you my story. When I was born deaf. And I was in my own world, being a happy child. I communicated through feeling, through watching, so images were important to me. I could telepathically communicate with my mother. And what also was present. Are you awake there? Good morning. Okay, good. What I want to say about that period of time, I was completely imbalanced and okay with myself. The only thing I couldn't do was hear. Well, the doctors found out, they fixed it. And then I had to learn about words and listening, like everybody else. By the time I was 6 years old, I went to primary school. And they forgot to tell them that I had this little problem before. So I was seen as one of the other kids. But I didn't understand what they were talking about. They tried to teach me 1 and 1 is 2. Well, I'm an image thinker, so translate that to images. If you give me 2 ones, what's that, 11?
Oh, wow.
That was my way of calculating. It took me ages to see that I was actually right. Because when you do it right, 1 and 1 is 11.
Interesting.
Yep. That's what I thought. But you know what? I went to school and I communicated that differently. That I was bullied. I was humiliated by kids and teachers. I had to endure abuse mentally and physically for 7 years. It was so bad that when I walked the streets, I got chased by other kids that wanted to hit me. I got completely traumatized. And you have to know one thing. At that day, they didn't know dyscalculia. They didn't know dyslexia. They didn't know anything about highly sensitive persons, which I am. An average person has about 10 antennas. I've got 200. So I feel a lot of things. Now, in that day and time, I was seen as plain stupid. And I was treated as such. By the time I came from primary school, I got a great weapon. Look at me. And that's where the bullying stopped. But I was severely traumatized and I was so confused with what people expected of me. And I tried to fit in that box of what people expected of me. And I worked and I worked and I tried and I did my best all the time to fit in that box, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. By the time I was 30 years old, it resulted in a major burnout. And one thing I could do only 3 things in life that day, was eat, sleep, and cry. I hated my own reflection in the mirror. I hated myself. At that time, I had a husband that was a millionaire. I was rich, but I was in prison. Not only within myself, but also in my relationship. But I knew I had to do something because I tried for 30 years to fit in and it wouldn't work for me. So I had to change. I had to change radically. So what I did I looked at myself in the mirror and I talked to myself. And I said, hey girl, I don't like what I see. But if you want people to see you as you are, accept you as you are, and if you want to shine your own light in your own way, you have to at least make it attractive for them. So girl, smile. Smile at the world, smile at your own reflection. And so I did. I committed myself to smile. And I looked in the mirror and pulled up my cheeks. I was crying within, but I just smiled. And I kept repeating that every day, several moments in the day. Whenever I went out, I put on this smile and it cleared my day a little bit. Until one day, I met a man in the street and he gave me this really heartwarming smile. And I was blown away by it. I was like, wow, why is he smiling to me like that? And walking on, I realized I was the first one that smiled at him. And he smiled at me in return. That was the first step, getting out. And it still, until today, is working. To the extent that I have let go of all kinds of identity about myself. What you see today is what you get today. What you see in 5 minutes' time, I don't know. Can be a whole different person. And what you have seen 10 minutes ago from me has already gone. I am in the here and now. And I feel blessed for the beauty that is in my life. The funny thing is that during that whole journey, miracles ended up. They just kept appearing in my life. And it fascinated me. I wanted to know how they came to be. And I investigated that. Now let me tell you another story, because it illustrates so beautiful about what kind of a miracle I'm talking about. As I said earlier, I was in a relationship where I felt trapped, I felt prisoned. And when I started to develop myself and letting go of all kinds of identities, I divorced. I walked away from millions, a lot of richness, and I took only one bag of clothes and a bike. Now, I'm from the Netherlands. A bike to a Dutch is like a car for everyone else. So, I had next to nothing. But I felt so relieved. I felt so happy to just be me and having this adventure with myself. But I needed to sort my life out. I didn't have work. I didn't have a place to stay. Sorted out the place to stay. Then I needed to work. And I made myself a list, 10 points. I said, well, I want to be a speaker. I want to share my experiences. So what do I need? I need a whole lot of national and international contacts. I need a network. I need a back office. I need speaking gigs. Well, the whole list, like that. Wrote the list, forgot about it. And I went to just do. And I think 2 weeks later, I was at the Chamber of Commerce in Amsterdam talking to a lady who asked me to do 20-minute sessions for starters, starting entrepreneurs. And of course I said yes, but I was in the process of getting things arranged. And during that meeting, she says to me, listen, you have to meet Angelique. She is the woman that has done this before you, but you are so alike, you have to meet her. And I was like, yeah. Now, the second time we met, she said the exact same words again. And I would go like, there were chills around my spine. And I could hear this voice in the back of my head. Does she need to say it 3 times for you to listen? And then and there, I knew I had to take action. That day, I took up the phone, I called her, and I said, hey, we gotta meet. She said, good, let's get the agendas and make an appointment. We made the appointment for 2 weeks later. And oddly enough, we never spoke about why we should meet. So the day came. I went to her place by train because I didn't have a car yet. And there I was in front of her door, and I was standing like, and I stopped in midair before I wanted to ring the bell, and I was thinking, what am I doing here? Who am I meeting? What am I going to ask? What is the purpose of my meeting anyway? I couldn't think of it, so I said, well, bummer, and I rang the bell. Within 15 minutes of that conversation, this lady, and we were getting to know each other in that 15 minutes time. We never talk business, but at 15 minutes, she says to me, listen, Sue, I've got this business for 6 years now. I'm fed up with it. I want to do different things. If you want it, it's yours, including the network, including my speaking topic, including everything, it's yours. I grant it to you, you can have it. And I was like, I wanted to say something, but the words couldn't come out. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, what did she just say? 20 minutes later, 20 minutes before I started the doorbell. So 5 minutes later, I was on the street trying to get my head around what just happened. And I was walking to the train station, and suddenly I stopped walking. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is 9 points out of 10 of my list. Wow. I was thinking I could do 3 to 5 years creating that, not 15 minutes. And with that, a whole wave of emotion rolled over me. I had goosebumps, I had chills down my spine. I was like so amazed. I went home, and the next morning I called this lady and said, listen, I love your offer, but I know that it's not for me. Would you like to work with me? You keep the company, I do the gigs. You do the back office, and I just go and perform. And she said yes. And with that, I sorted out my last point on the list. Wow. Within 3 weeks, I was in front of 300 people doing my first gig. And that's a miracle to me. Now I figured out, what is it that have me invite these miracles into my life? I wasn't focused. I wasn't having a goal. I just went on intuition. I was guided in a sense, but for all women in the world, I can say we all have intuition. There is this soft whispering before you have the chatter in your head, in every moment. And if you are training yourself to listen to that soft whisper and have the trust to act upon it, you will actually invite miracles in your life. And of course, you have to do the work. But there's a great adventure in not knowing where you will end up. The universe, or God, or however you call it, knows you better than you know yourself. And there's another thing. The universe, or God, or whatever you call it, has this wider perspective of all things. And it will create only that is of benefit to everyone and everything involved. So you can want something. You probably have experienced what it is like to want something and not getting it, even though you have worked for it so hard. And it's only because it wasn't to benefit everyone else involved. So instead of racing for your goal and working for it and being hard and on target and everything, relax every once in a while, listen to your intuition, and take the risk to trust it without knowing where you will end up. You might be surprised with what miracles will end up and what miracles you will see in your life. But you have to be aware and open and have your eyes open and be awake in the moment. Otherwise you will miss them, because this whispering is really subtle. There's no force behind it. No, it's a gentle push. But if you attune yourself to these gentle pushes, you will invite amazing miracles in your life. And I can tell you several stories about that. I'm sharing this with people, creating more miracles in my life. And I know this is going to be a new working paradigm. And I invite you to take only the first step. Go within and listen to your intuition a little bit more.
Amen.